Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Welcome back to part 3 of collecting my largest bonsai ever. The tree has been planted for several days now, and it's already beginning to change. Already new buds are popping out all over the branches, so that's a good sign. The tree now has to develop a root system to support all that new growth. How large and powerful a trunk looks on a bonsai all depends on the relationship between the height of the trunk and the diameter of the trunk. If this tree was the height of a building, it wouldn't look very large, the trunk diameter. If the tree was just the height you see it in the camera frame, the trunk looks massive. I do eventually want to reduce the height of this tree. I want to bring the crown down lower, and there's a couple of reasons. One is it'll make the trunk look more powerful, and the second reason is practicality, so I can fit the tree in my car, and it'll make it easier to move around on the benches. Not only do I want to reduce the height of this tree, but I also want to style it to look like a yew tree, not a pine tree that most bonsai are styled after. In order to style this yew to look like a yew tree and not a pine tree, I'm going to go and study yew trees. So we're going to take a journey. We're going to look at some younger yews, and then some older yews, and then some really ancient yews. So let's do that now. Today's video is all about styling yews here in the bonsai zone. I'll start off our road trip by looking at some younger yews. They're commonly used as hedges. You can see the nice new spring growth coming out on the trees. It's nice and soft, and as these branches grow, because they're quite thin in diameter, the weight of the foliage makes them droop. So you get that natural kind of weeping style to the trees. The trees in this hedge are quite thin. Most of them are about the diameter of my finger. The yews in this hedge are all young. They're about 5 to 10 years old. I'm in the park now where I've found a much older yew tree. Let's go in and have a look at it. Here's a look at the base of the yew tree, and you can see it's quite large in diameter, indicating it's a very old tree. Here's a look at some pruning scars on the tree, and you can see where a branch was cut off, and the tree is slowly, very slowly, healing over the wound. Here's a pruning scar that's completely healed over now. It's probably taken many years to do this, and you'll always see where that branch was. The veins kind of flow around it, and that's typical of a yew. Many yew trees have the lowest branches coming out almost at the ground. Often these lower branches get shaded out as the canopy develops, and they become deadwood. This lowest branch was alive last year, but now it's shaded out and it's completely dead. One of the lowest branches, right up here, has some interesting features on it, and that's the scarring on the branch. This branch may have split from the weight of snow, and it's slowly repairing itself, and you can see those live veins, the way they grow around the wound. Up a little higher, there's a deadwood branch. It looks like it did split from the weight of snow, and all that's left is a pointy stump. You can see the way the bark peels away from the tree. It's that paper-thin bark, and it just hangs down in strips. And the new wood underneath is a reddish color. You can see here it's quite a bright red color. There's some wrinkles at the base of this branch, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, really interesting features on these trees. It reminds me of the movie Alien, the way everything's formed. It's very, I don't know, biomechanical looking. Here's an overall shot of the tree, and you'll see that the branches come off the trunk at a fairly sharp angle. Up top in the tree, they're almost vertical. So it's sort of like a mini broom style tree. The lowest branches come off at less of an angle, and as you go up the tree, the angle tightens up to almost vertical. And you can see the canopy is lots of multi-trunks and branches. Creates quite a dense crown. Here's a close-up of some of that peeling bark. You can see it's paper thin, and it just peels off naturally, exposing that almost organic, or, you know, animal looking skin underneath. Wrinkles and veins, and yeah, really cool looking tree. You can also see as the tree gets older, instead of having a smooth round trunk, you get all the veins, the living veins that flow down to the corresponding root below. So as the tree gets older, you get more and more fine roots growing around the base of the tree, and the trunk takes on this really ridged, veiny type look to it. So it's a really cool look, and it's not many trees have it. The yew is one of the few trees that get those really, you know, nice flowing type ridges or veins going up the trunk. Right beside this old yew tree is a younger one. Let's go in and have a look at it. Right here. So again, all these low multi-branches, they almost start off like a shrub, and then they develop into a tree later on. So this tree is quite tall also, but definitely not as old. You can see the trunk is smoother down below. It doesn't have all those fine ridges around the trunk. A lot of the original bark is still on it. Not a lot of it's peeled off. And then even further down, there's another yew, and it's more of a clump style, and we'll go in and have a look at that. It's right here. I'm at the base of the clump style yew. Let's go in and have a look at it. There's not a lot of headroom, but I'll try and get in and show you all those, you know, veins that go from the roots that come up and feed the trunk and branches. So there's a good look at one. It's very pronounced. You see the flaky bark and the red color. You can see how they bud back from old wood here. This wood's in the shade and it's still budding back. I'll rotate around the tree here. We'll have a look at the trunk. It's very impressive. It's just amazing. Here you can see the surface roots. Wow. Some new growth coming out there. And it goes up and up into a big multi-trunk canopy. The tree looks very healthy. I'll bring us around the other side here now. Lots of surface roots there. A very large tree for a yew. I'm not sure how old this tree would be, but I would guess probably 100 years old. Yews tend to rot out from the middle, so you can't count the rings accurately, but it takes a long time to grow this thick. There's some of that flaky bark there. Just flakes off. There's an overall view of the tree. It just kind of looks like a big, giant, overgrown hedge. Over to the right here, I found another yew right here that we can go in and have a look at. So here's a look at that other yew. It's again a clump style. Let's go in and look at the trunk on it. I can't get too close because there's a garden around it, but I'll do what I can. There's a shot of the base of the tree. You can see all the multi-trunks. And it looks to be a younger tree. I don't see a lot of ridges or veins going up the trunk lines. I would guess this one is probably maybe 50 years old or so. Definitely not as old as the others. Here's a look at the sunny side of that tree, and you can see where they get the sunlight. They bud out all over even on the old wood. That was a look at some of the younger yews I could find. Now let's go to the United Kingdom and we'll look at some old yews at Kingley Vale. Kingley Vale is a 500-acre nature reserve located in the United Kingdom. Just over a year ago, a viewer, Mr. Watson, sent me a DVD with some video of some of these ancient yew trees, and he sent me a pamphlet from the nature reserve. Mr. Watson writes, "Another thing that you notice in the Vale is that no matter what temperature it is on the outside of the forest, once you're inside, the temperature drops like a stone. It adds to the mystery of this magical place." Let's join Mr. Watson now and take a tour of some of the ancient yews at Kingley Vale. Kingley Vale is located on the southern part of England between Southampton and Brighton. Kingley Vale has one of the most impressive and oldest yew forests in the entire world. The forest has yews that are as much as 2,000 years old, and they're some of the oldest living organisms in Great Britain. Kingley Vale is one of the few major stands of yews remaining. Most yews elsewhere are solitary trees or small stands. In some of the older yews on the reserve, the branches have grown so long they have touched the ground and rooted, producing a new ring of trees. This is how a natural yew grove is formed. Yews are slow growing and among the oldest living things in Britain. Some specimens in churchyards are thought to be between 2,000 and 9,000 years old. Many of the mystical and superstitious beliefs surrounding the yews are very ancient. Druids use these trees and their poisonous seeds in religious ceremonies, and the wood for making spears and bows. Yew trees are difficult to date because the trunks hollow out from the inside, so you can't count the growth rings. Many in this reserve are well over 500 years old. In 1472, with the increasing popularity of the longbow, the English government enacted a yew tax of 4 bow staffs for every cask of wine unloaded in the English harbour. This sparked a rush for ancient yew trees across Europe, decimating the forests. The dense canopy of the yew trees prevents other plants from growing. This lack of plant diversity gives the yew forest the nickname a birdless grove. Many of the yew trees in Europe were felled after the 14th century because it was the preferred material for making staves of the English longbows. Yews are evergreen trees and are well adapted to the dry, chalky soil. In early spring, some of the trees will produce small male cones about the size of a grape seed. When shaken by the wind, they will release great clouds of yellow pollen, which drift through the air until they reach the larger female cone. After pollination, a seed will gradually develop, surrounded by a red, fleshy fruit. The seed of the yew is very poisonous, but the fruits are edible, and many birds feed off them and distribute the seeds to new areas. Thanks very much to Mr. Watson for supplying those videos of Kingley Vale. I found them really fascinating. After watching the Kingley Vale videos, I'm super excited about styling this yew tree to look like a yew tree. Whenever I'm thinking of styling a bonsai tree, I always look at the full-size counterparts in nature to see what makes that tree look like a tree. So in this case, what makes a yew look like a yew tree? A bonsai is an interpretation of nature, so I don't look at other people's bonsai trees to see what they've done with yew trees. I want to look at the trees in nature and do my version of a yew tree. I can't do any styling to this yew tree yet. It's just freshly planted, and I have to wait to see what branches are growing well, and then I can maybe reduce it down in the future. I would eventually like to reduce the height of the tree down to at least here. There is a branch here that could take over this leader for this trunk line. I don't really like this branch. It goes in towards the center of the tree. I would rather everything kind of fanning outwards like the yew trees you see in nature. There'll be lots more videos coming up on this yew tree as it develops, and then I can start the styling process. I hope today's video got you excited about growing yew trees as bonsai. I know I'm really excited to get this one underway. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me today in the Bonsai Zone.